Okay, so thank you, and welcome everybody to my talk. This whatever time zone you are, time of day, on decoding data science job descriptions. A little bit about, oh, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Okay, a little bit about me. So yeah, I was already introduced, so I guess I will skip this part, so that's fine. Thank you for the introduction, and I will go on and say, why do we even care about this? So I think one part that is really very, like, still quite a big problem is that how things are starting when we're looking for a job are not always how things are ending. Like, so it all starts with where we have a lot of people that can do data science or want to do data science and can do data science and are looking for jobs. And then there's also a lot of jobs, and then a lot of companies that are hiring all sorts of data scientists, like with more or less different job descriptions. But then what happens is that most of the time we discover, like after the job started or sometime along the line, that there is a huge mismatch between the expectations of the job and the reality. And this happens both from the perspective of the company and the perspective of the employees. And so this goal mismatch, I think it already starts at the level of how companies are hiring and looking for people, and how people are basically looking for companies, right? So that's already where the mismatch and the goal misalignment starts, and this then only can go larger. So as job seekers, we want to understand the role. Like, we see a job description, we have some job interviews, we want to understand the role, we want to understand the culture, where are we going, and we also want to understand the team that we are going to work with, and then find out as much as possible about that team and how they are, and because we are going to spend a lot of time with them. On the other side, companies are more like, you've had all job interviews, so you all know probably that companies, it always feels like they want to find out with minimal effort how smart you are and how compatible you are with the culture. So culture fit, whatever that means. If and a lot of companies don't even have like explicit culture defined, so it's always like a random process depending on who gets to interview you. And also the job interview sometimes is not even like related to the job itself. Like, there was all this there's still a lot of companies that do blackboard interviews where you get algorithms and you need to, on whiteboard, you need to do algorithms, but then in your job you will never do algorithms, but they are still doing that. And what are they evaluating with that? So let's talk a little bit on today on how to basically find ways to some ways to find data science dream job, the data science dream job. So, and let's look then at the process of finding a job. Where can we optimize it best? So when we are evaluating jobs, we are going through 3 steps, right? I mean, we have the job description, we have the interview, and we are basically on the job. Now let's take it from the on the job. Like, being on the job and finding out that the job sucks is really late. You already put like a lot of effort in it. You got there. And the emotional stress of having to change a job while you're in it, not everybody affords it, leaving the job. And sometimes you end up staying in something that doesn't work out for you, or it doesn't fulfill your needs after you've spent so much time interviewing. So it's really, really like the worst timing to find out that the job doesn't fit. Interviews they are also time consuming. Think about it. Every job will be kind of a little bit different, and their requirements and what they are expecting out of you for the interview are going to be a little bit different. And if you want to really be prepared, you have to put effort in that. And now in data science, every company does take me home challenges that take, I don't know, 4 hours, they say. But then if you really want to do a good application, you will end up spending 2 days at least, or a week, even if you're really, really interested. And that is not a sustainable interview process. Like, if you apply for 5 jobs and you have to put 1 week on every job like that. So basically, that is not a good place to start identifying that it doesn't work out. And then there's the job description, which is like the smallest unit, and you don't even have to interact much with the company to find out what you need to find out. So that's why in my talk, I'm really focusing on how do we get as much information as possible in the job description phase. So the job description phase, like that part, they would take the least time investment to assess. And you don't need to expose yourself to being evaluated by other people and measured and whatnot. And the cool part about it is that if you are doing this research, it will only help you in the future, because if you end up applying at a job that you have properly researched, you are going to stand out as a candidate that is truly interested in that job. So you will have really good questions. I hear a lot of the times from people interviewing that they are complaining that the candidate didn't have questions, and then they're like, they weren't interested. That's the automatic assumption, right? So where are some places where you can do some research? So it's, of course, the job description itself, the company website, the LinkedIn profiles of the employees, if they don't have profiles on the website. Do they write blogs? Do they go to meetup and conferences and so on? And you should really treat this step as a detective, right? So you're looking, okay, I see all this information that is there, but what is the information that is missing? And you have to ask yourself, why is it missing? And usually the information might be missing due to two reasons that are quite different. One would be ignorance on the company side, and the other one would be indifference. And this is really important to figure out which one it is in the interview stage, because maybe you can deal with ignorance, but indifference is really hard to, so ignorance is they didn't know, right? They didn't know that they were doing something bad, but indifference is that they knew and they didn't care. So it's definitely, you do not want to go somewhere where you discover that they are indifferent about something that is very important for you, because that would only lead to a lot of sadness and stress. So you look at a job, if you really are interested in it, start taking notes, and then just okay, this is missing, this is missing. So let's talk about what are the things that I would be interested as a data scientist when I look at a job. So what can I find out? So one thing is the team, the other thing would be the role, and the other thing would be the culture. And I think these are things that one can really, truly get a glimpse at just from the way the company presents themselves. Because that, when a company writes a job description, this is a way for them to present themselves, right? I mean, interview, everybody says, is a two-way process. So it is. So the team is really important. You will spend 30% of your time with your team. Now, 30% of the time you spend it sleeping, and the other 30% of the time you spend it with friends and family, or cats and dogs, whatever you have around. Now, how you choose what you spend your free time, who you spend your free time with or not, right, is as important as making the same choices for work. Because you only have a lifetime to live. So, and companies don't really want you to think about this. They want, so old school companies are really about, well, we pay you, you should be happy to work for us. Yeah, so I think maybe our parents' generation or some generations before, that's how it was, but this is not how it is anymore in some of the countries. In some other countries, it's still like that. But we need to set examples, good examples of our expectations where we can, so that others can follow suit. So let's talk about clues that you can get from the job description about the team. So first of all, on the job description, there are some possibilities. The team not being mentioned. They don't say anything about how it is to work in the team, what team you're going to work on. And that's already why not? Or the team is mentioned as in progress. We are building the team. That means usually that if you start working there, you will be the first data scientist. Now you have to think about it. If you're a junior data scientist, that is not a good place to be. because you will not have mentors. Nobody will help you. You'll have to figure out stuff on your own. That's not going to help, not going to be really good. Even if you're mid, maybe you don't, I don't know. You have to decide on your own, is it a really good thing not to have a team? Now, the team might be well described, and here it could be well described in the job application, in the job description. That is really cool when it happens. I've seen job description where they even give team member names in the job description, and they say, and you're going to work with this person, his name is Sam, and he's so cool. Now, if you go on the website of the company or on LinkedIn or whatnot, you can check out the team profiles online, right? So you can check if they are diverse. You can check if they are diverse with respect of background. You can check if they are diverse with respect of the different types of roles that they're doing. Like, you know, in data science, where everybody's called data scientists, but everybody does different things, is the company naming everybody a data scientist, or they have more specialized roles? So that will already give you a little bit of understanding of how specialized or generalized you will work. Do the people in these teams inspire you? Do they write blogs? Do they contribute to open source meetups, conferences? Are these things important for you? Write that down. And if you don't find this information, put it into questions. This is maybe important for you, and then you might want to find out sooner than later. What if you end up in a company that doesn't want you to go to conferences, but you want to go to conferences? What kind of a company is that, right? So, team again. Really important thing. Are there any juniors in the team? You can actually go further to the company itself and you figure out if there are juniors in the company. Now, you see there are a lot of companies that sadly do not like hiring juniors. It's not just juniors that need to be mentored, but it's also mid people that need to be mentored. So if companies don't believe in having juniors around because it's too much work and we don't need to mentor, who is doing mentoring? Is mentoring not part of the values of the companies? Do you like to work with mentors and be mentored and be able to mentor? If this is important for you, you need to figure out if the company is doing that. If they're not, if you don't find any clues about it, this should be a question you answer in the interview. Let's talk about the role. And this is the part that is like more specific to data science. So remember, in an ideal world, companies hire people they need, not people they want. But we are not in an ideal world. And most of the job descriptions kind of sound like people they want rather than people they need. And you need to figure out, are you the person they want or are you the person they need? And how far away is the person they need from your ideal role? So if you realize what the person they need is and you're like, I don't like doing that kind of work, then you're like, you can say, okay, I'm not going to apply there already, saving some time. So first of all, already from the job description, you can figure out some bullet points, many bullet points. There's a difference. When a data science job has too many bullet points, for me, this is usually a sign that the team that is doing the data science team is not really mature. The company has some problems, but they don't actually know what kind of things are needed to solve those problems. So they just put everywhere there. They've seen, like, reading some blogs, data science is this and that, and then they just list there. Everybody should be expert in Python, R, and Julia, and TensorFlow, and that, and that, and that. And you're like, what problems are they solving, right? So that is already like a red flag, in my opinion. Okay, and now, what is really important to understand about companies is that according to this survey that was done this year in Fortune 1000 US companies, 24% of the companies don't believe themselves to be data-driven. Or, well, the CDOs, chief data officers in these companies did not believe that their organization is data-driven. Why does this matter? Well, this matters because when a company is data-driven or not, this information helps you understand what kind of work will you spend most of your time on at work. Even if your job is data scientist, that doesn't mean that you are going to do data science. So let's talk a little bit about what does that mean. So small analogy to the past now. Long time ago, cars were invented. Yeah. And there was a time when on the streets in London, in everywhere, they had cars and they had horses at the same time. Some people had cars, some people had horses. Some people were buying cars because their friends had cars and they wanted to show off, and they also got cars. And some people who had cars, they were driving the cars on the street, but they weren't really like knowing how to drive those cars, and they were like driving with the same speed as horses, or even if they knew, they basically didn't. Even if they knew, they didn't like know how to. Yeah, like they weren't safe with that. So, and then there were all these other people who had lots and lots of cars in their garage, and they would never drive them. They would have them there just to show off to their friends. Look, we also have cars. Now, does this sound like data science, right? How companies treat data scientists this day? Because so many companies, they hire data scientists, and then you hear stories about them not doing actually any data science, or like they're doing something that they call data, or they have data scientists that end up doing data engineering and all sorts of things. But if they talk to their friends, they can say, we have data science. Yeah. So think about that. So let's go into the examples of like, what could these companies be and how do you find out? So there are 3 stages. I call it like 3 stages. So the first stage would be a company is before data. Now, this company, when they are publishing stuff in the internet, or you hear people like you're not actually interviewing with data scientists, you're interviewing with other people in the company. And then they would be saying stuff like data is the new oil and whatnot. Or that you are going to be our first data scientist. And these are like really like, okay, yeah. But you have to be aware that these companies, they will believe data science is something magical that solves all the problems immediately. And even if they do that, they won't believe in the results. So all of decisions in these companies are still made based on gut feeling or based on how they used to be made. And there will not really be much support from the upper management to go data-driven. Reporting and data flows are still done at a manual level. Spreadsheets that somebody updates and archives and sends around and all that. Now, there is nothing wrong in working in such a company as long as you are expecting that and you don't get disappointed expecting to do neural networks and then you have to do spreadsheets. Okay, so what is the job going to be like actually in such a company? It's going to be assisting with reporting or doing all the reporting, convincing everybody that data needs to be tracked, collected, and analyzed. And honestly, most of your effort is going to be spent on politics. Like you are going to have to convince people that whatever you are going to do as an experiment is going to be really profitable, and then over the next 20 years. And the sad truth is that the company needs our business intelligence and data engineering. They will not really need data scientists because they don't actually have a data infrastructure yet. So you are going to end up doing this stuff, which is great. You're going to learn a lot, right? But it's just good to know what you're getting into. Now, the next stage would be that stage where companies like data. And you hear sentences, people in the company, in the management, they say, we want to be data-driven, but they're not, right? But they want to. Now, at this late stage of companies, data science is still a magical thing, and immediate results are still expected, and on-demand improvements, whether they make sense or not. What is missing in the company is a company-wide data culture. And some of the decision will be made on data insights, but most decisions are still going to be made old school way. And they will probably have at this level already a solid data infrastructure. So you are going to do some data science, but you're still going to do a lot of convincing work. So everything that you do work on has to be presented left and right and proved again. You are going to do analysis, you are going to do modeling, but not many of your models will make it to production, because by the time you're done with your work, the rest of the company, who didn't actually believe that this is going to work out, moved on and has other priorities. So lots of effort is going to be spent on politics and educating others. And the lessons that you will learn a lot in this is about prioritizing work. How are you going to figure out what is the work that is worth doing? So these are really good lessons to learn. It will make you a really strong data product person in the end. But again, you have to be ready for that. If you're not a good communicator in this company, you're going to kind of have other people dictate what you're going to do. So the company needs at this level are data literacy training for their upper management. And until they understand this is important, it's going to be fighting, with the wind, walking with the wind against your face all the time. So, because the sad truth is, in the world, so now I'm showing a graph where 75% of this chart is black. These are all the decision makers in industry that are not data literate. So with all the efforts that we're making, with all the jobs that we have, 75% of the jobs on the market, you can think about it, are not in data-driven companies and are not in companies where the decision makers are data literate. So you need to convince a lot and really simplify all of your charts so that you don't use fancy metrics. Everything is sums and like simple metrics. Okay, and the next type of company that is the ideal one would be the data-driven one. So here, the signs of a data-driven company would be, you will see research published. They are publishing research. Data is at the core of their product. Here, they solve complex problems with data science, machine learning, and you find data in every product, in every team that is doing something, they are going to use some data. And of course, data literacy is not going to be 100%, but at least in over 50% of the company is going to be data literate, and decision-making will be made based on insights. And there will be a lot of open source and research and publication. So if you find all of these clues online, then you know that this is the kind of company. And here, indeed, you are going to do building data products with your team. You're going to advance state-of-the-art research. You're going to advocate for data science for your team, for your program, product, and you are going to do data science and more. So it's really important to identify at which stage the company is to figure out what kind of data science work you're going to do. Now, it's not bad to be in like a company at the beginning, but you need to be realistic with your expectation of that company, because it will take time until that company becomes data-driven. The more years the company spend not data-driven, that's how longer it takes to actually become data-driven. You need to re-educate people to be different, to think different. And let's talk about the last part, which is the culture. Now, you have to be aware that culture of a company is really important. Lack of culture fit, from your perspective, it's not the culture fit that the company is hiring on when they think of culture fit, right? So lack of culture fit leads to stress and can really take a lot of your work time to deal with, right? So instead of you focusing your work time on growing technically sometimes, you will end up focusing your work time on fixing the culture, adapting to the culture, and all of that. So you need to figure out, are you in the right time in your career to fight these battles? Because if you're a junior data scientist and you start going into fixing the culture, you're never going to get out of junior data scientist. You're going to go into doing diversity and inclusion, which is also good. But then you need to know that you're going to switch these directions in your career. So And it is really challenging to grasp this full extent of how the culture is of a company in like from an application process, from the interview. So you really need to figure out what is important for you so that you are focusing your questions in the interview process on this. So some things that are really important, I think, to really figure out if they're important for you, and you're all at this conference. So, and you need to figure out, is the company competitive or collaborative in culture, right? And this is something that you can figure out easily from the words that they have. When they have rockstar and ninja on the job description, you already know that they're going to be competitive and not really about diversity. Do they care about volunteering? Do they show up at meetups and stuff? Do they care about flexibility? Will you ever need a flexible work time? Like, for example, they say like women at some point in like higher up in their career, maybe if they decide to have children, they want to have like flexible work time. But the higher positions, many companies do not offer flexible work time at senior levels. So then you always end up having to have these choices, which is not fair, right? So these are things that you should really think about down the line, how important they are for you, and then inform yourself, where is this company at? The next thing that you can pick up out of the job description, though, is whether they're using an inclusive language. Now, there's a website that you can, like, whatever job description you find out there, you can pass it. It's a gender decoding website. And sadly, according to Text.io, they did a study and they found that the machine intelligence jobs aren't just the most masculine in tone, but they are actually the most masculine in tone by a really wide margin. Now, why does this matter? Is because when the job is masculine in term and you read it as a woman or like even as a person from an underrepresented group in tech, you are going to be put off by that job. And instead of being attracted, instead of finding the job attractive, you are going to kind of like, I don't know. And you're going to move away, right? You're going to move on, even if the job actually might end up being good or not. So you need to understand that you always need to investigate, is this because of ignorance or because of indifference? You might be able to work with the ignorance part, but maybe it's worth investigating. And so it's really good to figure out, wait, is this reaction that I have, is it just because of the language? Maybe I can ask, why are they having this kind of language in jobs? And then maybe they say. Another thing that is also easy to see in jobs is whether they are they have language that is about ableism and ageism, like they don't want to encourage older people or people with disabilities from applying. And that's also something that one needs to see. So why it's important to know about this for companies on the other side is because apparently listings that have gender neutral wording, they do get 42% more responses. So maybe it would be good for companies to pay attention to that. Now, the culture, on the other hand, let's talk about the list of skills we see on a job. Now, how many of those are marked as important and how many are marked as what might be interesting to have or not? As I was saying earlier, if I see too many bullet points, I find it that the job is written by an immature team with respect to data. But on the other side, too many bullet points apparently are for women translated into a rigid hiring process, where instead of being able to use the fact that, look, I communicate to you that I am able to do this job that you're hiring for, you will feel that you will have to prove every little thing on the list. And then you will go directly into, it's not worth the effort to prove myself like that. I can do it, but if they don't make an effort, why should I make an effort? So sometimes maybe from our perspective, we might be missing some opportunities just because of that. So what could be a trick that we could do for ourselves? Of course, companies could improve their job descriptions, but until they do, is about having jobs, so thinking about performance objectives. So even if the performance objective is missing from the job description, so very few jobs I think have the job description organized like that, and they still do the list, but you can try to transform the list of tasks into what could be performance objective in this company. And then think about it. Okay, if this would be the objectives, would I be qualified to fulfill them? And then for the people writing jobs and for you, think about it. This 2 boxes here would be describing the same task, right? And which one would you apply? Would you apply for a job that says requirements, a PhD plus 3 years experience, or would you apply for a job that says improve the performance of 3 of our production machine learning models in the first 6 months? In the end, the work that you do in both of these jobs might be the same one, but which one feels like, oh yeah, I can do that, and the other one's like, I can't get a PhD now. Like if I didn't do it by now, and 3 years experience, really? What are they doing? Sending rockets to space? Okay, so that is on this part. The next part is the equal employment opportunity statement. So does it exist? I'm missing a word here. So the first question is, does it exist on the website? And if it exists, is it generic? Now, apparently jobs that have an equal employment opportunity section do fill out 6% faster. So equal employment opportunity is the part that says that the company is dedicated to actually hire people from all sorts of backgrounds. And how are they dedicated to that? So it's not just enough to say, yeah, we want, but they also say, okay, these are the things, some of the things that how are we taking this goal seriously? So then you know that they are going to do that or not. Okay. And then the last part is the salary. Now, there is a huge gap between what people want to see on a job description and what they get. So apparently, around 1.5 or so, less than 1.5. So 1% of jobs. So all of these things are links, and I will send you there at the end of the talk. You see the resources. 1% of the jobs that were analyzed for the study had the salary expectations on the job description, whereas 74% of the people searching for jobs expect to see a salary compensation, and 61% think it's really important. The salary is the most important consideration for their job. Now, why is this information important to be on the job description? You do not want to spend 5-6 weeks of job interviews in an application process just to find out at the end that they are not offering you the compensation that you expect. So it's saving everybody's time to see that maybe this is not for me. And on the other side, if I see a job that is not putting the data out there, I'm thinking, what are they hiding? Right? Like, so they don't actually have fair compensations. They can't really come out with the numbers. Then it means that they have some people underpaid and they don't want to fix that. I am free to think that, right? If they don't put the data there. Okay, so to conclude, you have the job description and you need to look for the missing information and the existing information. And then everything that is kind of an alarm bell for you, think about it. What could it be? Is it ignorance or is it indifference? Again, in my opinion, you can work with ignorance. With indifference is a little bit more complicated. That is saying like, look, I know this is bad, but I don't care, right? And then you need to decide which one are you willing, which one of the problems or the things that is missing are you willing to compromise on? And what is important for you? Because those you will not be able to compromise on. And also there is no really a dream job, right? So everything is going to be in the end a compromise, but you need to figure out, is the team for you more important than the dream job? So maybe it's important to have a better team than the shiniest data science models and things like that. Okay. And then the final question to conclude is, why do we need to do this? So decoding the job descriptions is just dealing with symptoms of a broken system. We are gamifying this. We are gamifying how do we get around the fact that the interview process, the hiring process is actually broken. And this is a quote from my career coach and Mary Biorek, and she said, like, we are still interviewing, so we are like the world companies interviewing for filling in chairs rather than interviewing people to participate in a team and achieve company goals. And that is why we need, when we are decoding jobs, to figure out what are the company goals, what are the teams, what is the culture, because this is not how companies are presenting themselves. So thank you very much for your attention. And please do not forget about ethics. As a data scientist, it's really important that we think about ethics. And even though the dream job is there, maybe you shouldn't take it just because of ethical reasons. So this is a book that I'm currently reading called Race After Technology, and has really good examples where AI is misused and stuff like that, and how you should pay attention to that. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you so much, Tereza. Such a wonderful talk. I personally enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I'm also at the same point in my career, like been working, as an AI engineer, and I got to, shift into a data scientist role, like going to shift into a data scientist role recently. So I think your thing perfectly resonates with all of us in the industry, especially during these times when, we're having this sort of great resignation that even Shauna was talking about. So yeah, thank you so much for presenting it. I think we had one question. So folks, do leave us your questions so that Tereza can help answer. I think we had one question. Asmita asked, do fresh graduates have these options since they have minimal options, so as to say?
The way I always tell the people in my bootcamp is when they are graduating and they're looking for jobs is that, as I was saying, you have some compromises to make, and it's at some point you are allowed in your life to use companies for your gain. So maybe it's not the best company in a sense that it's implementing really cool products and you really believe in it, but your motivation for going there is to improve your CV and learn stuff. So you're doing it for you, and you can do that for a year. You put that on your CV and you move on, and that will really boost your CV, and you can move on to actually going for something that you believe in. Because first, you need to be in a position of power to be able to have as many choices and opportunities as you can be, and you need to grow that.
Absolutely. I think that's really well put. So, Kelly also had this question. If I study a master's in data science, can I also apply for data engineering course?
I think it depends on the focus of your master in data science curricula. If you also had about building data pipelines and SQL and ETLs, how to like move data from one place, transform it, make it available for other people. If this was already something you were exposed to, I think so. And then you can always try to find, I think there is like a lot of demand now for data engineers, and not enough data engineers qualify. So if you find a junior data engineering role that you can say, look, some company, they don't have junior, but they have mid or whatever, and you apply and you write a cover letter where you say you're so interested in data engineering and you're willing to learn and you want to do everything. I think they should look at that. But I will share the slides, and in one of the links is like a study from LinkedIn. Apparently women are not really going for asking for references from inside the company. So this is something that I always recommend also, is find out someone who knows someone that works at the company, and then they can recommend you. And at least then your CV gets read.
Absolutely.
So I think why not?
Yeah. And I think, as you rightly put in, right, a lot of companies are still in this phase where they are building up their data infrastructure, so as to say. So I think like definitely being a ML person or a DL person, you still need to have this knowledge how to have an infrastructure to support your models in the long run. So I definitely believe like both the roles sort of coexist at this point. So yeah, that's really well put. Thank you for that, Teresa. Yeah, I think we are almost done. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Teresa. Thank you so much for, answering questions.
Thank you.
I think there was one last question just that we got just right now. Can we take that?
I think I can. Is there time? Or when is the talk?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
you
I
can
can
go
also.
ahead. It's okay. You
How?
can go ahead, take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I read a book. It's a very funny book. It's called Never Split the Difference, which is the art of negotiation. And there was a trick there. It's with FBI and everything, negotiating with terrorists, but it doesn't matter. Negotiation is negotiation. And there's an example there about how to actually to turn the job interview in having a mentor in the company forever. And it's basically asking someone who's interviewing you for advice, right? So don't ask, so how is this working in your company, but is asking for that person for advice on where do they see your career in the next 6 months, and what should you do to get there and whatnot. And this is transforming this person automatically in a mentor, because you ask them for advice and there's going to be this instinct to follow up to see if you implemented their advice. It's a very sneaky, but you do what you have to do. Nobody will judge.
Yeah.
So
Very well put. Thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa. So yeah, lots of tips from you today, and I think like everyone who listened to you today like took away a lot, and I think they'll be like looking out for these pointers the next time they read descriptions. So yeah, thank you so much for that. I think it makes a lot of difference, especially in today's, as I said, when everyone is like sort of this, this period where everyone is changing jobs. I think your talk was really relevant. Thank you for that. So yeah, let us now wrap it up. Thank you, Teresa, and let us know. Do reach out to Teresa, and you can head back to the other sessions happening. Again, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much, Teresa, for giving this wonderful talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.